lot of her friends were like, "Oh, I hear that you're in the next Bond movie. What's it called?" And she would say, "I don't think they've named it yet."
That's amazing. Welcome to Gold, Diamonds, and Death, a James Bond podcast. I am your 00 host, Jonathan Watkins. I am a writer for all things under the Cinemasins brand name and a co-host of the Behind the Scenes podcast. Joining me each and every week for this endeavor, he's the co-founder of Cinemasins and co-host of the weekly podcast Recotopia. And with everything he sets out to do, he's always trying to reach an all-time high. And he is also one of my good friends, Mr. Chris Atkinson. How are you this week, sir?
Hello, I'm doing all right.
Awesome.
Yes.
We are going to talk about Octopussy. This is,
That's
I
right.
wonder if there's somebody out there, please don't do this, and I hate that I'm giving you this idea, but I wonder if there's somebody that's going to like cut this up to where it's just us saying Octopussy over and over, or
Now someone definitely is.
or you remove octo, from the word, so that could be fun. But we're gonna say Octopussy
It'll be a weird pussy though, because it'll be like
true.
It'll be a different, like slightly different accents on the syllables or whatever. So
or you'd catch like the last bit of that O, so it'd be like oh pussy, or something like
exactly.
that. Yeah,
exactly. A pussy. A pussy.
Still can't believe this is even in 1983. Like I am assuming my mom did not take me to this because there was no way in hell she was going to be like 2 for Octopussy, please.
I'll tell you straight up, in the behind the scenes, there Christina Wayborn, who plays Magda.
I like her a lot, by the way, in this movie.
I like her a lot too, and seeing her in her interviews, I was like, oh man, I wish I need to see more of her because she's fantastic.
Much, though it sucks. She's in like a lot of TV, but she didn't do a lot of movies. So,
but she seems to be a wonderful person. And she was saying that a lot of her friends were like, "Oh, I hear that you're in the next Bond movie. What's it called?" And she would say, "I don't think they've named it yet."
That's amazing. It is based. I mean, they didn't make up the title though. The title does come from from an Ian Fleming story, which we'll talk about later, and it's really weird.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that they try to skirt everything, which is just it's basically, I want to get away with saying pussy in this movie is all it comes down to, by saying, well, it was in the Fleming story, and there's like a backstory for it where it's like, but the backstory is gross too. Like even Roger Moore's like, okay.
Oh God! I mean, we already had pussy galore. I was just thinking, it's not like you had Sean Connery going, "Oh, pussy" or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. This seems weird for some reason. I don't know. But let's talk about it. So we're gonna go behind the scenes, talk a little bit about the making of the film. This is a segment we like to call Eon Flux.
This is a journey.
I'm gonna make a movie.
We have to go back, Kate.
Wow, how did you know all that stuff?
I did my research.
I don't understand any of this.
What the fuck is going on?
We're going to scour through the history of Eon Productions and give you all the highs and lows that went into the makings of these films. I feel like this one felt like it was pretty like straightforward. Like there wasn't a lot of craziness there. I mean, the main thing I guess is that Never Say Never Again is also in production. That is going to come out also in 1983. And so there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and that's being the idea is that everybody wants everyone to know that this is the Bond franchise, that Never Say Never Again is nothing. This is the Bond franchise. And so there was, I guess, some effort to kind of make this stand out a little bit in that way, although I don't really completely understand that. Like they intricate, like the theme is used quite a bit more often than it normally is in different ways, stuff like that. They just wanted people. And that's also why Roger Moore mainly comes back, but I'll get into that in just a second. So this film was released. It's the 13th film in the official James Bond franchise. Like I just said, it's the first of 2 Bond films that'll come out in 1983. It was the summer of Bond is what I kept reading. It was released on June 6th, 1983 in the UK, June 10th here in the United States and Canada, United States. Yeah, I guess that was in Canada also.
North America, usually.
North
just
America.
Like it's, yeah.
On a budget of $27.5 million, it made $187.5 million, so it was a hit. $67.8 million was in North America. It was the 6th highest grossing film at the U.S. box office. That was, of course, the year of Return of the Jedi, 1983.
Yep.
Return of the Jedi, which was number 1 and made $200 million more than the number 2 movie, which was the Oscar winner for Best Picture, Terms of Endearment, which was my dad's favorite movie. Although I don't know if that was a lie. Like I feel like his favorite movie was probably like Stripes or something, but he just wanted people to think he was serious.
Yeah, maybe so. I will say Terms of Endearment is one of those movies when you read the synopsis, you're like, oh no, I'm not. Nah, that's not good, right? But it turns out to be really good. Like it's really good. Way better than the synopsis.
Especially when you hear about how much Deborah Winger and Shirley MacLaine hated each other. But they play a super effective mother and daughter in that movie, and maybe one of the best, which is just funny. A lot more variety, like in the top 10, which I guess has been pretty common. But like Flashdance was number 3, Trading Places, War Games, which I didn't remember War Games was that big of a hit.
By the way, filmgoers in 1983 were treated to 2 scenes of people on trains dressed up as gorillas, Trading Places. And
that's
movie.
Right. That does happen in Trading Places. I totally forgot about that. God,
yep,
that's wild. And they're both in the top 10.
And I'm going to say at least 2 because there may be more that I'm not even remembering right now. So
I think that's probably it. Like, we were good until it was, Congo. Not Congo's not.
It was James Belushi in Trading Places. Right. Who was dressed up as the gorilla.
It's been a long time since I've seen that.
Yeah.
Too long. War Games was the one that finished a little bit ahead of Octopussy. It made about $12 million more. Sudden Impact, which was the 4th Dirty Harry film, it made about $200,000 less than Octopussy. And then also you had Staying Alive, which was the sequel to Saturday Night Fever, directed by Sylvester Stallone. I've never seen it, but that movie was huge, apparently. Mr. Mom and Risky Business. That is a weird, like that would be the weirdest double feature ever, by the way. Mr. Mom and Risky Business.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tom Cruise, 83 was the year where Tom Cruise burst on the scene. Oddly enough, it was also Nicole Kidman's first film that year, a movie called Bush Christmas, which I've never seen. I assume it means the bush in like Australia, I would guess, but
yeah, probably so.
I don't. Maybe it was a family name. I don't know.
By the way, I don't know if this makes any difference. I said James Belushi is dressed up as a gorilla in Trading Places, but it ends up being Paul Gleason because he's the one who ends up in the gorilla. Oh, that's right.
Yeah. He like takes the suit or whatever, right?
He takes the suit later on the train when there's the big whole thing with Jamie Lee Curtis and Denholm Elliott and Eddie Murphy and all of them doing the different characters and stuff like that.
That is definitely a movie made on cocaine. Like, there's no way that movie wasn't made on cocaine.
For sure. Absolutely.
And I think there's even a scene. Isn't there a scene where like Dan Aykroyd does cocaine? He's got like cocaine like all over his face or something. Is that Trading Places? Maybe
I don't know if he does cocaine. I know that he's accused of doing it because they they have to make him homeless.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And so like they plan it on him, I think. Yeah. I don't know. I can't I'm right now I'm blanking on all the different little details. I don't think he does. I don't think he does it. Maybe he does towards the end. I don't know.
I just have a scene in my head of him with like white powder on him, but it could be from another movie. It could be a lot of things. I could be misremembering because it's been a long time since I've seen it, but I'm sure that movie's not problematic either. I'm sure it's very socially aware.
From 1983, absolutely has nothing, no problems.
John
with it
Landis, I mean, most politically correct person ever. So.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right, we already said film's title is obviously taken from a short story that Fleming wrote. Albert Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson are back producing, and John Glenn is back in the director's chair for his second film in the franchise as a director. His first film, obviously, we talked about last week, For Your Eyes Only. United Artists, we already talked about too. They're having all kinds of financial issues at that time, but even so, they still went ahead and greenlit. Oh, and that was mainly because of Heaven's Gate. But even though they were having financial troubles, they still went ahead and greenlit this movie in 1982. But then shortly after that, United Artists was purchased by MGM, making this the first film to officially be released first film in this franchise to officially be released MGM. Obviously, MGM had been releasing films for a very long time before this.
Mm-hmm.
But this was their first Bond. So yeah, writing. Michael G. Wilson and Richard Maybaum do come on eventually to write this. However, what? Oh, Richard Maybaum?
Maybaum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be weird when we don't say his name. George MacDonald Fraser, however, was brought on initially. He was most known at the time as a novelist. He had written this really popular series of novels called Flashmen. I've never read them. I don't know much about them. There was a movie made based on one of them by Richard Lester in 1975 called Royal Flash, and Malcolm McDowell played the main character there. But also, Fraser would then go on to write other screenplays for Richard Lester, the Three Musketeer films specifically that Richard Lester directed. There's 3 of those.
Yeah.
Oddly enough,
Oliver Reed and Oliver Reed's in them.
Yeah, there's three Musketeers, and then there's like, it's either 4 Musketeers or it's the 4th. I can't remember how it's titled.
Yeah, I think that
those are both in the 70s, and then like weirdly, like either in the late 80s or early 90s, they made like Return of the Musketeers. But anyways, Richard Lester also was the guy who did Hard Day's Night, Superman 3.
Yep.
But Fraser also wrote scripts. He's uncredited, but apparently he wrote something. He was involved in Force 10 from Navarone, which was the sequel to Guns of Navarone, made in the 70s. And then also the year after, 2 years after this, he wrote the Red Sonja, which was supposed to be like a spinoff of the Conan. The Barbarian films, and this was around that time where they were trying to make, oh my God, I just forgot her name, Bridget Nielsen, they were trying to make her into like a big thing, and she definitely had a few years where she was in some huge movies.
Yep.
Film was originally supposed to take place in Japan, but Fraser, although I read a couple different things, I read that when they hired Fraser suggested they do it in India because he had done a bunch of research on India for the Flashman novels. I also read, though, that Broccoli wanted him to come write the script because of the Flashman novels, and so it kind of made it seem like maybe they already were going to set it in India. So I don't know which is true, but for whatever reason, that's why they wanted him involved.
Yeah, in the behind the scenes, they said that because of his research or knowledge of India, that he wrote, from what I can tell, wrote a lot about the surroundings, like what they ended up when they went and did location scouting and everything. They found basically the place that they felt like he was writing about in there. And they said that one of the main issues with shooting in India is that it's huge and getting around is hard. So like to try to find a spot where you have everything within 5 to 10 minutes of everything is very hard to do. And they found this spot that seemed like what he was writing about, and either I don't know if it was a treatment or the original screenplay or what, but
he wrote the first draft. So I guess he wrote an official screenplay. Then they call Richard Maybaum, like, hey, we need you to come back. And him and Michael G. Wilson take it and they rewrite it. The only thing they did keep, he was the one that came up with the stuff, like he wrote, Fraser wrote the stuff like the clown, dressing up as a clown and the gorilla. So they kept all that. And he apparently had this opening scene, though, that they rewrote. But the opening scene originally was supposed to be a motorcycle chase at the Isle of Man TT, which I guess is was a popular motorcycle race area. And they changed that to the whole thing with the plane, which actually the pre-title sequence, I mean, it's quite a bit of fun. So I don't know if that would have been better or not. The jewelry stuff, though, was mostly Maybaum and Wilson, from what I could tell. Like they kind of came up with all the stuff about the jewels, which gets really confusing. As to far like
yes, it does. It's tremendously confusing. I sat there, went back and forth about who's working for who's providing what to what person,
where
and for
are
what
the fake
reason.
Jewels, what are the real jewels? It was just
it became a chore trying to think of like where all the stuff is. So,
Roger Moore wanted to retire from the role. Once again, Timothy Dalton, Lewis Collins. Michael Billington were all kind of thought for the role. Billington supposedly, he's been screen tested for more Bonds than anyone else, supposedly, reportedly. So I thought that was interesting, which we've mentioned his name a few times. Other people, the only other one I had was Oliver Tobias, but Broccoli actually denies that ever happened. That's just something that apparently Tobias has said, and Broccoli denies it, so who knows. And
James Brolin.
Oh, yeah, James Brolin. I have him too, sorry.
James Brolin actually did a screen test. They show the screen test in the behind the scenes on Octopussy, where Maud Adams is doing the scene from The Man with the Golden Gun, I believe. I believe that's what scene that they're doing in there. I could be wrong. It could be the scene from Octopussy. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But James Brolin comes in, and it's really weird seeing him as Bond. Like,
he's American, right?
Yeah. Father of Josh Brolin.
Oh yeah, of course.
But yeah, like it was just weird seeing it. Going, I could maybe see it happen. Like,
yeah, I know what you're saying.
It would require a whole movie and maybe a series of movies for me to go like, James Brolin's pretty good. Like, I don't know. That's one scene was hard.
I read one thing where it even said he was cast. Or at least he felt like he was, because he was looking for a place in London. And trying to.
Yeah, Roger Moore gets this at the very last minute.
He does.
Like he signs on very last minute.
And
apparently.
The reason they really started pursuing him was once again because Never Say Never Again is coming out, and that's being filmed too, and that has Connery. And so they felt putting a new person up against Connery might not work in their favor. Now they do, and I've already said the top 10. Never Say Never Again's not in the top 10. So Octopussy does better than Never Say Never Again. I don't even know what I haven't looked into Never Say Never Again yet, but they were concerned at the time that could be an issue, and they felt if they had Roger Moore in the role, at least people would understand this is the Bond film. I would say,
if I remember, the Octopussy did make a decent amount more than Never Say Never, but it wasn't like a landslide, if I remember correctly. And I think Never Say Never is probably just outside the top 10, if that's the case.
So Never Say Never Again, it made, 160 million worldwide, which is about 27 million less than Octopussy. And then it made, let's see.
It looks like it made 55 million in North America.
So it was,
and it doesn't say worldwide on here, so I'm wondering if it made a worldwide.
160 is what it says on Wikipedia.
Okay, Box Office Mojo does not give worldwide on this for some reason, but it was 13th. In 1983.
Yeah, Octopussy made 67 domestically, so it was about 12 million difference. It wasn't that much of a difference.
Yeah,
I mean, it was probably enough for MGM to be happy, or to Broccoli to be happy.
Sure.
But it definitely wasn't like they didn't kill it. But you do wonder, like, if it's not Roger Moore, I don't know why that would have mattered, but I mean, I guess I see their point. But they went after him pretty hard after that, and then he finally was just like, fine.
And if anything that we've come to learn about these type of things where they have somebody coming in to screen test and everything, like, if Roger Moore is asking for a whole bunch of money to come back, and then they start screen testing James Brolin, who's not going to request that much money, then they can reduce the price that, so I'm pretty sure that's probably where they were heading on that one. That's why Brolin thought he had it, is that it didn't look like Moore was going to sign.
Yeah.
And then at the last minute, Moore's like, okay, I guess they've got James Brolin now. I guess I'm going to have to sign whatever they want to give me. So
that could be it. Who knows? Maud Adams plays Octopussy. You already mentioned she was also in The Man with the Golden Gun. Gotta be honest, don't really remember her from that, because I don't really remember much about that movie, even though we just watched it.
I just remember her death. Just remember her death scene, because she gets shot in that crowd, and somehow it manages to stay still, like she's frozen in ice.
And so we've had people come back from other films, but she's like kind of the first to play, technically, I guess, a couple of Bond girls. Like, that's just kind of odd, And I guess until recently, where we had Lea Seydoux, repeat her role. I still think that's a little different, though, because she's actually playing the same character. Maud Adams isn't, so that's definitely different. Sybil
Yeah.
Danning was originally considered. I cannot see that at all, by the way. That would have been weird. Although it's interesting because I do think Grace Jones and Sybil Danning are kind of very similar actors. Like they're pretty, like they have like just this really like strong presence and they're just kind of like ferocious. And so I think that's Grace Jones kind of obviously will pop up in a couple weeks. We'll talk about this one, but she's in the next Roger Moore Bond film. Barbara Carrera says she turned down the role. I read a couple different reports on that, but Barbara Carrera ends up being one of the main characters in Never Say Never Again. And she was also up for this, apparently. Faye Dunaway was briefly considered, but then they just figured she would cost too much, so they kind of went away from that pretty quickly. Jane Jenkins, who is this casting director, she was also told at first to look for South Asian actresses. So she, I think, screen tested a couple. It was Persis Combat. She was in Star Trek The Motion Picture. And then Susie Colho, I'm going to go with. I did not see anything else she had been in, so she didn't have very many credits. Kathleen Turner and Barbara Parkins also reportedly auditioned for the role. I shouldn't say Susie Colho didn't have a lot of credits. She did. It wasn't anything. I did not know her from anything.
Yeah.
M does come back. He is played by Robert Brown, and he'll play the character for a couple of movies. He was also in The Spy Who Loved Me as Admiral Hargreaves. Vijay Amritraj plays a character named Vijay in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a tennis player.
Yeah, professional tennis player. Used to play tennis with Broccoli. And I think he said it would be fun to be in one of the Bond movies, and then so Broccoli found a role for him. He even has a tennis racket at one point. It's a weapon.
Yeah, he does. He said something to the effect of it'd be awesome to be able to say that I was at Pinewood in the morning and Wimbledon in the afternoon.
That's so cool. He was pretty popular at the time. I did not know him, but this was obviously, I guess this was in the 80s. I don't remember. Maybe he played in the 70s or something though. I didn't look that deep into it, but it wasn't a name I was familiar with around that time. Louis Jordan plays.
Yeah, is Louis Jordan.
Louis Jordan plays Kamal Khan. I know him mostly. He played Arcane in Wes Craven's Swamp Thing movie from I think it was a year before this. But Louis Jordan is the perfect, just eccentric. He's what I picture when I think of an eccentric, I don't know what his nationality is actually in the movie, but I'm thinking eccentric, French or
he's
British. He's
supposed to be Indian, I believe, but
Indian. That's right.
I think he's just a French guy who was somehow able to pass off as Indian in this one. They may have done some skin coloring or something, but he's just got that look. He just looks like he's up to no good at all times. I don't know how else to explain it. He's pretty perfect for that role. But he plays Kamal Khan, one of the villains. The villain thing gets kind of messy too, who's a villain and who's not and all that stuff. We already mentioned Christina Wayborn. She plays Magda. Unfortunately does not have very many credits, and most of her credits are television. And I don't think she's had one for a while. I think most of that was in the 80s. Yeah, it was. I think 86 or something may have been the last time she was in something.
Maybe she found something else to do in her life.
Yeah, she probably did. There's some activity all the way to the early 90s, and then it's sporadic, and then she did a short just as recently as this year. But that was a 4-year gap between projects.
Yeah.
So she only has 19 credits on the IMDb.
I hope she's doing well.
Yeah.
Good for her. Steven Murkoff is General Orlov. A year after this, he's in one of the highest grossing movies of all time. Maybe the highest grossing R-rated movie at that point. I don't remember. Beverly Hills Cop.
Well, yeah, for a long time, I think Beverly Hills Cop was the top. But then stuff like Wedding Crashers and Passion of the Christ and I don't know if Hangover ever made it, but
yeah, you might be right.
But Passion of the Christ and Wedding Crashers and The Matrix and stuff like that.
Yeah,
got high. May have gotten higher grossing R-rated, but yeah, Steven Berkoff was a fixture of the 80s. That's a villain.
Oh yeah,
that's a villain face that you cannot forget.
Yeah, he's in Rambo: First Blood Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
He plays Lieutenant Podofsky. But yeah, Victor Maitland's what I always think of. He also, though, I don't know how any of us can forget his portrayal of Pavel Kozik in the 1995 classic starring Cindy Crawford and Billy Baldwin.
Yep. Fair Game. Yep.
That movie had a $50 million budget. It's crazy.
Yeah.
How did they ever think that movie was going to make that much money?
I don't know. Makes no sense.
Fair Game also, the one thing I remember about Fair Game is that it's based on the same novel that technically the Stallone movie Cobra is based on. But they're two very, it's weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing. Yeah. So yeah, Steven Berkoff, who I sadly thought was dead. He is not. He is still alive. Still working. Probably has lunch with Christina Wayborn on the weekends.
All the time.
David Meyer and Anthony Meyer. They play the twin knife throwers. They do have character names, Mishak and Grishka. But they're credited as Twin 1 and Twin 2.
Yep.
Desmond Llewellyn's back as Q. He has often said this is his favorite. At the time, it was his favorite that he had worked on. He said it probably because he had more to do than usual. Louis Maxwell's back as Moneypenny. Jeffrey Keane is back. There's this. I couldn't find much on this, but so Moneypenny has an assistant in this movie.
Yep.
With the unfortunate character name of Penelope Smallbone.
Yep.
And she is played by Michaela Clavel. This was her third credit, and she only has 3 credits on IMDb. I wonder if there was something if maybe we have a Maxwell replacement or because didn't they do that with John Cleese in Q?
They may have, but in the behind the scenes on this one, Lois Maxwell says that when she got on the set, she was like, "Oh, I see. You're trying to get the replacement for Moneypenny on this," and then she realized that it was just a daughter of a woman that she used to hang out with in the 60s when they were both models or something like that. And they just put her in for a token thing. It wasn't really a replacement situation.
Well, I'm glad you saw something about that because I did not see anything and I couldn't find anything. That's cool. But I just thought that was interesting, and that's a dumb scene too. It's like he thinks that's
really
Moneypenny.
Stupid fucking thing. Yeah.
Sadly, a lot of those scenes have kind of become so. Filming. This was filmed West Berlin and India, and also they filmed some stuff in England. The Monsoon Palace was used as the exterior for Kamal Khan's palace. And then they had a couple of places they used for Octopussies. It was Lake Palace and Jag Mandir. So these are just some places in India. These really beautiful.
Did we talk
palaces.
about also Kabir Bedi, the guy who plays Gobenda, basically the Jaws of this movie, the silent assassin?
Oh no, I did forget to write him down. Yeah.
The only thing I want to say about this is first off, he's fantastic in the role, but I am a little sad that they made him silent because in the behind the scenes when they talk to Kabir Bedi, he's got this beautiful deep voice that would have been amazing.
Because the only time he says anything is on the plane, and he's out there, when he asks him to go out on the wing or whatever. That's the only thing.
Yeah, Gobenda, Kabir Bedi plays Gobenda, the guy who's the right hand man of Steven Berkoff in the movie.
Yeah, and he's got a very menacing look to him. So it is pretty cool. But he is kind of like a Jaws. He's a little more intense, I think, in some ways.
Yeah.
But he's the one where they have that scene where he's. So there's a scene with Bond and Camille. And Khan or whatever at the backgammon, the high stakes backgammon game.
Yeah.
And he grabs Betty grabs the dice and crushes them. To show Bond that he means business.
Right.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you mentioned him. I did forget to write him down.
It's a sort of a throwback to what's his name in
Odd Job.
Yeah, Odd Job, where he smashes the golf ball in his hand.
It's the same thing. It's the exact same scene. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I kind of like it better here, I think. They also, like I said, they did shoot some stuff in England. They also went to Utah. That was some of the desert type stuff. They had a couple areas that they used in Utah for some of that. The BD-5J aircraft, this is used at the beginning of the film. He's got it in a horse trailer. They said that the plane actually had collapsible wings, but that was still a dummy coming out of the horse trailer, which I thought was odd. If they had a way to fit it in there, I don't know. But however, the parts of him flying in the hangar, though, they couldn't. They attached it to a Jaguar.
Yep.
With a steel pole. They removed the roof of the Jaguar, which that sounds
the Jaguar. I'm gonna call you out on the Jaguar pronunciation, Jonathan.
No, that's fine. Jaguar. What was I saying? Jaguar.
Like people always call it the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it's like it's not spelled Jagwires. It's spelled Jaguar. Anyway, that scene is the way they shot that. It's really awesome. Like they did this thing with like models, and they had like it's where I guess they shot the barn or the hangar. They shot the hangar like at a really far away distance or whatever, but then they like put a door, like a really small door, really up close to the camera, and it just looks like the door is closing on the hangar, but they actually have a much bigger space to fly that plane into. You just think it looks like has no space whatsoever, and they did it on the way out too.
Yeah.
And what was this? This was supposed to be in either I think it was Moonraker, right? They had this scene was supposed to be in Moonraker, or it was either that or For Your Eyes Only. I think it was Moonraker, though. No,
the stuff they took from Oh, you're not talking about they took it from the book. You're saying this was a scene they were going to have in the movie.
In the movie.
Oh, okay. I didn't read that. So
yeah, it's this scene where he goes through the hangar and flies out and it blows up and all that was supposed to be. I think it was Moonraker was when it was supposed to be. But it could have been For Your Eyes Only. It's one of the previous ones that they were supposed to do this scene in, but ended up making it in this one. So,
yeah, no, they took something for the Moonraker novel. That's why I got confused. But that was something. That's the backgammon scene was in the novel Moonraker. But that's something they actually had in the movie. Yeah. So and then they also said when they were driving it around, they just blocked the scene really well. Like they had all these extras and props and stuff just so you couldn't ever see the Jaguar. I can't say it. It's one of those words that I'm just never going to be able to say correctly, especially now that I'm thinking about it. There was not a lot of stuff I read about the stunts. There was a Martin Grace. He was a stunt coordinator, and he also doubled for Roger Moore, which... God, there's that scene on the train, and you're just like, it's on the plane or the train. I guess it's on the plane. You're just like, that is not Roger Moore.
Yeah. Although the train, you may have heard, you may be about to get into this thing about the train, but
this is where he got hurt.
He got hurt.
To say? Yeah.
The something is, I think the scene just kept going. Nobody yelled cut, which is something we heard about the gondola scene in which one was it now? The Spy Who Loved Me? No, it wasn't The Spy Who Loved Me. It was
might have been For Your Eyes Only.
It was Moonraker. It was Moonraker, and where they had the guy hanging off of the gondola, and he was just sitting there, and nobody yelled cut, and he he's just sitting there like that. But that's the same thing happened to this guy, and then it gets on part of the track that they haven't rehearsed yet.
They hadn't surveyed it. They didn't know anything about it. It was weird.
Yeah, and then it was like some sort of stone abutment type of thing was jutting out.
Concrete pole. Yeah.
That he ran into and like took a big chunk out of his thigh apparently. And he was in the hospital. Yeah, he was in a hospital for 6 months.
Yeah, he's so and in the thing I read, they said it could have been even worse. They got pretty lucky that he didn't actually die because it could have been a lot worse. But yeah, they had the second unit director. There was a miscommunication, and so they just kept on filming. And then it's crazy. Maybe there are a lot more deaths than we realize, but I don't know. Stunt. That's one thing I'm probably happy that they do the way they do now, even though they still do some crazy stuff. I mean, you got Tom Cruise goes underwater for like 6 minutes, but I think that's a Tom Cruise thing. I think Tom Cruise is just like, I want to do this.
It's definitely a Tom Cruise thing.
And I'm Tom Cruise, and you're not going to tell me I can't do this.
But the plane sequence, yeah, they did this. They freaking did this. They had the fight on the plane, and they had basically, using technology that they used before, they hid parachutes on these guys just in case they fell off the plane fighting on top of a plane. and they also had they painted the plane in such a way so that it looked like they were holding the outside of their airplane.
Yeah, I read that.
But they were really gripping it. They had a grip. It was a hidden grip that you couldn't see the way they painted the plane and everything. But I'm sitting there going, that's insane. We don't give the Bond movies, I don't think, enough credit for how much they put into their stunts. Like, they were absolutely insane what stuff they did. Because when you see something in the movie, it's usually a guy doing that stuff in the movie.
It doesn't necessarily make the movie better by any means, but there is something about that where it's like, I don't want people to be in danger, but like, I mean, I'm just saying I'm taking more realistic stuff like that if they're willing to do it over, whatever they would do now, or they would just CG stuff. And I mean, you'd still, I don't know. Like I said, some movies do still do things like this, but it seems more rare than it used to. And like I said, it's got to be somebody like Tom Cruise just refusing to not do it. And
yeah.
But anyways, and then also the only other thing I had, there was a cyclist. There was like just a random cyclist when they were doing that rickshaw, like the sword fight or whatever. There's this cyclist in the background, and it's just some dude. He was just completely oblivious to them filming.
Yeah,
he's like, I don't care what you're doing. I'm driving my bike through here.
That was a really funny part of the behind the scenes, because they were talking about how they would call for 5,000 people to be extras, and 10,000 people would show up.
Yeah.
And it's really, it's really hard to actually keep the public out of the movie, out of harm's way in the movie. And they talked about this dude doing his bicycle thing, and he's like we saw this bicycle guy on a bicycle go through the middle of this sword fight, and he didn't even bat an eye. It was like, well, that's just normal stuff for me.
It's amazing. I had to go back and watch that scene. It was so funny. That's like in Ghostbusters, and I think I don't remember why I was talking about this in something, but I think that was like in Ghostbusters, where when they're walking down the street after they go to the mortgage, they get his mortgage, like whatever they're doing to get money, and they're just walking down the street having that conversation. Like, all those people around them are just New Yorkers and didn't even are not like supposed to be there. I mean, they were just filming it in New York while people were walking around. It wasn't like, hey, extras come. And but it's funny because in that scene, none of those people are even looking at Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis. It's like they don't care.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like,
right.
This is
yeah.
It's like, oh, why are these guys like blocking the
normal
sidewalk?
Shit. Yeah.
Oh man. So John Barry returns. This is his 9th Bond score. I had mentioned this, I think, at the beginning, but he really emphasized to keep using the Bond theme throughout parts of it. So hopefully people would be like, this is the real Bond movie this summer. It's not the other thing.
Now, all the way down to the Snake Charmer's tune
God.
in the movie.
VJ's playing his recorder. That actor, the actor, he was terrified of snakes, and they made him a snake charmer.
They said that the actual guy, the professional, snake charmer that was on set or whatever, who brought in the snakes, they kept asking him, is the poison taken out of the snake? And the guy would say something like, well, yes and no to them. And then he goes, yes and no, what do you mean? He's like, well, he's still got some poison in him so that he can live or whatever. And they're like, okay. And it's like, this snake is 2 feet in front of me or whatever. And like,
well, at one point they even put snakes on him to try to make him more comfortable. Like he said at one point, like a python was just like wrapped around his neck, and he was just like, okay, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
All Time High, which we've made a reference to earlier. That is the name of the song. It's written by John Barry and Tim Rice, who's done a lot of collaborations with Andrew Lloyd Webber. I feel like Elton John too, right? Wasn't he involved in like?
Yep. Lion King.
Yeah.
Lion King.
And it's sung by Rita Coolidge. All Time High is one of 7 Bond themes that does not reference the actual title of the movie, which I'm not shocked by. Although I'm kind of like I don't know, if you're gonna have the balls to name your movie Octopussy, name your song Octopussy and come up with something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was a pretty popular song. It was on like some chart, adult contemporary. I don't know. It was on some chart for weeks at that time, like 3 weeks or something. I honestly never remember this song. Like, this is one of the theme songs where I'm like, I got nothing. And then I hear it and I'm like, oh yeah, it's that one. The release and reception. So the film got better reviews than I thought it did at the time. No one like overly praised it, but most people were like, this is a fun Bond movie. Maud Adams was one of the main targets of criticism, and not just her, but just her character, the writing of her character, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Later on in the more current reviews, which this movie's gone down quite a bit, it's currently at like a 42% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the audience score is only 47. A lot of retrospective reviews also, they center around the movie not having any stakes. Like, they just don't feel like anybody's ever in any kind of danger, which is weird because one of the main things is a nuclear bomb is going to go off.
Yeah.
And Steven Berkoff gets criticized a little more in the more modern reviews as opposed to Maud Adams. In fact, I was reading a lot of like modern reviews. They're talking about Maud Adams and Roger Moore had really good chemistry. I don't know that I agree with that, but whatever.
Yeah, I don't think I do either.
So that's kind of all I had on the behind the scenes. Do you have anything else you wanted to discuss?
I do think, now they didn't say this in the behind the scenes, but I do think that that there is a connection. Either it's based off of the Ian Fleming stuff or whatever, but I think the fact that Octopussy Circus is a thing in this is a somewhat callback to Pussy Galore's Flying Circus. So. But there's not anything, they don't really wink that at all, and they didn't say it in the behind the scenes, so I don't know if that's just a coincidence or what, but it seems like it's kind of a callback.
Yeah, and I rarely heard the circus brought up or read about the circus. Like, I was trying to actually look for stuff on it, like why they chose to do that. I never really could find anything, but maybe that is part of it.
The other thing is in the scene where Magda, played by Christina Wayborn, jumps off the balcony. That's her actually doing that stunt with the sari unraveling as she comes down to the ground and like is only in a bikini by the end of it. But that's actually her doing that stunt, which is cool. Pretty amazing.
Man, yeah, she's the underdog of the Bond films, I think, at this point. Like, we should have had more of her.
Yeah, absolutely. We should have definitely had more Magda. There's no doubt about it. And after seeing her in the behind the scenes, I was like, my God, I'm in love with you. Could you have done more stuff that I would want to watch? And apparently not. But yeah, that whole fight at the end with all the women, doing all the acrobatic circus stuff and everything, apparently they started off doing this in India, which was very hot, and they had all these, scantily clad, whatever. And then they had to go to Pinewood in the middle of November to finish it because it's inside the set or whatever. And it was apparently super cold and they were all wearing all this stuff. And then, the stunt coordinators sort of taught them how to fight and everything on screen and everything. And they really loved doing that. So a lot of fun there being had at the end of this movie.
Absolutely. And we're probably going to talk about that scene and many more in our next segment, and that is called A Review to a Kill.
I've got you in my sights.
Get the fuck out of my sight before I demolish you.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
There's no need to shout. I'm not shouting.
Why don't you stop your whining and get on with it? I've heard this shit before.
We are going to give you our thoughts on whatever film we are discussing this week, and this week it is Octopussy. So real quick, plot of Octopussy: fake Fabergé egg and a fellow agent's death lead James Bond to uncover an international jewel smuggling operation headed by the mysterious Octopussy, being used to disguise as a nuclear attack on NATO forces. What did you think of Octopussy, Chris? Is this only your second time to watch it?
Yeah, it's my second time, and I don't know if I were to rank this one in the Roger Moore's, it's definitely, I mean, Spy Who Loved Me is still one of my favorite all-time Bonds.
Yeah.
So it's not there, and I don't know, I think I like this better than, it's got to be in the top tier of Roger Moore's that are in here. I think the plot is a little confusing because they are switching out real jewels with fake jewels all throughout, and there's so many people who are on, like it's tough to figure out. I don't know if it's just really tough to figure out who is doing what. It's easy to find out who is profiting and who is on the bad guy side by the end of the movie. But like what they were doing all the way through the movie is hard to figure out. So Bond gets on the trail of Kamar Khan because he makes Kamar Khan buy that egg for 500,000 pounds. Like they're at the auction, and it's going to be 400,000. But then Bond, like to the horror of the British government, starts bidding on it, and he drives the price up to 500. And then he's like, well, I'll just, what if you had bought it? It was like, well, I would have told him it was fake because he had a fake Fabergé egg to show them. Yeah. And he says, what if he finds out? It's like, well, if he finds out, if he's for real, he'll say something about it. And if he's not for real, he won't say anything about it. Yeah. Obviously he doesn't say anything about it. And I don't even know how important it is to have that one particular Fabergé egg. It's a MacGuffin. They end up putting a whole bunch of treasures in this one thing. That it's going to end up going to Kamar Khan, I believe, is where it ends. Like it's Stephen Burkoff's got it. Yeah, I think Stephen Burkoff's got it. And then I think it's supposed to eventually go to Kamar Khan. I don't know. You're right. It's a MacGuffin. Like none of this. But you're sitting there trying to figure out why are there fakes there? Why are there they're replacing the fakes? Yeah, because they're replacing the real ones. Fakes, yeah, they're replacing the real ones with fakes so that I guess upon initial examination they look real. But I don't know. And they just keep moving that case around that's got like the jewels in it. Then eventually it's got a bomb in it. Yeah. It's just like I've never been able to really kind of keep track of everything. And even when you read about the plot and stuff, it's still very confusing as to I don't know. I feel like the writers never had a great grasp on exactly what, and at some point they just kind of gave up and were just like, whatever. We're just gonna, I mean, it's just a little hazy. I mean, in the end, it doesn't really matter what's happening to what in all of these things. It's just that by the end of it, they are changing out the treasures with that nuclear bomb, and they are sort of hiding it on this train that apparently a U.S. naval base in Germany just allows a circus train to go in to their base and not get inspected and or anything. So that's the way of the world, I guess. You just allow circuses to go on your base. And everybody likes a circus. And the whole plot is that the whole reasoning behind it is, well, oh no, a nuclear bomb exploded accidentally on a U.S. base, a naval base. Well, then we'll all have to be disarmed after that. That's a really huge leap in logic. I think so. I know that they're discussing it at the very beginning. They're in that like sort of that war room thing at the beginning. The only thing that looks kind of Ken Adamish, even though we've got Peter Lamont doing the production design. Yeah. They are talking about nuclear disarmament. They don't want to, no country wants to be outmaneuvered in these things, but the only one who's who's really crazy about it is the Burkoff character. And yeah, I don't know. He seems to think that blowing that up, that blowing up is going to cause everybody to want to disarm, and then they can just go to whatever country they want to and take it. Yeah, and it's like, why would Khan be behind that? Like, it's a weird thing. And then also, Burkoff makes this comment, they're not going to blame the Russians. This is 1983. They're absolutely going to blame the Russians, at least at first. Maybe they would have no proof, but I don't know. The idea that there would be no retaliation and...
everybody would think it was an accident.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I understand that they wouldn't be able to trace that a nuke got shot from Russia. That's what.
Well, that's true. That's probably
the thing that they go in that really quick exposition thing when Roger Moore's on the train, but like. But I just think it's a huge leap, and I mean it fits Bond villains a lot to think that
it does.
to make a giant leap about something that people will just be like, okay, this is like they think they're playing 4D chess, but they really aren't playing any kind of chess.
Yeah,
they're just like doing, they're just really causing chaos is basically what it comes down to. But
yeah, I guess I'm just saying it definitely wouldn't go down as smooth as. The Burkoff character is making it out to be. I'm kind of with you. I could not defend this movie if somebody came at me and pointed out all the shit, because there's a lot of shit, and I have negative things to say about it. But I do kind of like this movie. I'm actually kind of surprised because I hadn't seen a lot of the Moores recently, and I'm shocked that I like as many as I do, because I kind of came into this thinking I wouldn't. Like, this was one I thought I remembered not being all that good, but it's fine. Like, and I don't know if that's because also I'm coming off For Your Eyes Only, which was kind of dull, and just talk about a movie that had no stakes.
Yeah.
And I liked Moonraker more than I thought I would, and I like Moonraker I think more than this, but I still prefer. I definitely like this more than For Your Eyes Only. I definitely like this more than Man with the Golden Gun. It's probably in that Live and Let Die maybe. Well, no, Live and Let Die, but see, Live and Let Die is pretty good too. Like,
yeah.
Live and Let Die just falls apart so quickly and badly there at the end that it kind of like not you don't leave that one with fun memories, but the first 45 minutes of that one or whatever are pretty great. But anyways, I just have fun with this. I get all the complaints, and I will say I don't know if it's Maude Adams or if it's the writing, and I don't remember her in Man with the Golden Gun that well, so I just don't know if this is just Maude Adams isn't a great actor. I didn't think her and Moore had any chemistry, really. And also, the other thing about her character that kind of stinks is that talk about, like, hey, we talk about this a lot, but it seems to need to talk about, like, why they don't kill Bond.
Yeah.
And, like Khan can just kill him pretty much right away. It actually tries to, but then because he sends his what's the sidekick's name? It's Gorbenda, I think, something like Gobenda. Yeah, Gorbenda. He sends him after that whole backgammon scene, and attempts to kill him then, and then they don't succeed, of course. But then the next time he meets Khan like lets him come into the house, gives him a room. I mean, he's under guard and everything, and he's probably going to kill him, but I'm just like, why aren't you just killing him now?
There's a point in here, and this is, they go back to do this quite a bit in the older Bonds. Yeah. They did it in Goldfinger quite a bit, but but in this one, he says something like, we've got to know what you know. So I guess there is an information thing in here where it's like, well, if he knows about our plot to accidentally blow up a nuke, then our plan is done, and we're gonna have to figure something else out or whatever. But I don't know. He does. Again, yes, there are many times where they could just go ahead and kill him, and they don't.
Well, and they kill another agent too. I mean, that's how this starts, right? They kill 009. Yeah. So they had no problem killing him.
Yeah.
But then Bond, they decide. I don't know. And the thing I was trying to say, though, about the Octopussy character real quick, that is she ends up finding out that he was the one that tracked down or caught her dad. Her dad had, he was a jewel thief or whatever. And Bond, instead of killing him himself or putting him in prison, Bond allowed him to take his own life. And she is very grateful for that. And so she kind of becomes Bond's protector. It's just a really weird reason. And I mean, I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying that just seems like kind of like somebody came up with that, told somebody else. It's like, let's put that in the script.
Reason. Yeah. There could have been millions of other reasons, but you ended up on that one. Yeah.
And that's something they actually took from the story, kind of, which I'll get into. But I think that's the problem I have. And so once that happens, now all of a sudden, like, Octopussy kind of becomes a good person, kind of.
Yeah.
At least she's trying to protect Bond. She wants Bond to work for her. Khan still wants to kill Bond.
I think we're supposed to believe that she just, all she does, and we're supposed to be, I don't know, more sympathetic to her or whatever, is that all she does is she smuggles jewels. There's no killing. There's no anything else. So that's what she does, and she uses the carnival as her front, and that's it, pretty much. So like, she's not that bad. She's not that bad of a person. So
yeah, no, she just steals jewelry. She's just a thief.
Yeah.
She has an island full of women.
Mm-hmm.
Which I was kind of impressed didn't get more creepy with Bond being on that island. But
yeah, I think with Moore's own personal, especially from what he said about having the co-stars and For Your Eyes Only who were half his age, I think Moore himself is who puts the kibosh on a lot of that type of stuff, of it
probably
being too creepy, you know. So it sort of makes sense that they don't get too pervy about that. Again, it's a lot like but this whole place again reminds me of the Pussy Galore Flying Circus, because that was exactly what she did in that. She trained a bunch of beautiful women to be bombers or whatever, but pilot bombers or whatever. And in this one, she's training all of them to be circus performers and thieves.
But there's also men in the circus. Like, where are they? Like, this whole, like, are they just staying on a different island?
Yeah, I don't know about that. Like, no men are allowed, but you see Kamar Khan always there, and yeah.
And then, of course, they do have because VJ and Q are like taking shifts, like monitoring stuff going on over there.
Yeah.
And VJ's like, has he come back yet or something? And Q's like, on an island with all women? We'll be lucky if we see him before morning, or he says something like that. Christina Wayborn also, we find out at this point, her character Magda, she's actually I guess on Octopussy's side versus being on Khan's side of the whole thing. She's Octopussy's like aide or whatever you want to call her, partner or whatever, which her and Bond do hook up too. It's earlier in the movie. So, and that's kind of a situation trying to find information.
Yeah, that's the whole situation where he puts out I think it's a fake egg for her to steal, and it's got the little device inside of it, the recording device.
See, I'm confused about that too, because I think that's supposed to be the real egg, because Bond had the real egg.
No, the real egg, he had to sign a chit for the real egg.
Oh, that's right.
So it's a fake one that has a little, and they smash this egg at the end too. But there's a little transmitter in this thing that allows them to know where it is, and it allows him to overhear conversation.
Yes.
And so that's how he knows where the circus is going, because it's called the Karl Marx something. It's Karl Marx stat or something, like Karl Marx stat is what they call it. And they know, of course, they tell the exact like location and time and everything over this transmission. But anyway.
And then I really like Louis Jourdan. I like him. I think he's just great as this type of character. I don't know that I would just want to see him like just be like a love interest in a movie or something, but if it's like something like this or like Arcane and Swamp Thing, like I'm down.
Yeah.
And Burkhoff is fine. Like he's not. I like him better in other stuff I've seen him, but he's a pretty good villain. Like he just looks like a bad guy kind of, and
especially if you grew up in this era, he was always the villain.
He was one of the bad guys, right? So I like stuff like that. I think where this movie really falls apart, though, the times where I'm not on board, is just the plot. The stuff with the jewelry is like it gets so weird, and then like you said at the end of it, I don't think the jewelry even matters. So it kind of becomes this like you're getting a headache trying to figure out what all this is, why this is happening, and then at the end it's like it doesn't matter.
By the end of it, they're just like, oh, all this treasure is just going to go to this one dude anyway, and it doesn't really, like all the fakes don't really matter all that much. But
this movie attempts to do a lot of humor too, and I don't think it works. The Tarzan sound effects, for instance.
Yeah, so bad. So bad.
Another thing, like somebody wrote that, and somebody else is like, "Yeah, we're definitely doing that, man. That's awesome."
I bet that was just like in the editing room. They were just like, "Hey, let's just add the Tarzan thing." You know, it's like
they're trying to make a joke or something, and then they actually makes it into the film. They're like, "Whoop!"
It's like was it Modern Romance where Albert Brooks is the Foley editor, and
I believe
they're
so.
doing the science. They're doing the science fiction movie with George Kennedy in it, and like they're like, we need the sound of people running across a carpet or whatever, or across the floor, and they end up getting this like Hulk sound where it's just Hulk like screaming and like pounding and everything, and he's like it says Hulk running, it should say Hulk screaming, not Hulk running.
That is an amazing movie, by the way. I just saw that for the first time like in the last couple of years, and God, Albert Brooks,
it's great.
He was killing it in the 80s.
Yep.
And 70s. I guess that might have even actually been 70s. I can't remember.
I think it was 81.
I think that's right. That's right. Modern Romance, because the one he does before that, I get those confused. The Real Life is the one he did like 78 or 79 maybe. Mm-hmm. Which is a pretty fascinating movie too, because it like basically predicts reality television. It's crazy. But anyway. There's that. The VJ character is very like stereotypical, and it's just like he's supposed to be funny, but it's just kind of weird. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he's gonna die too.
Yeah,
as soon as
sucks.
As soon as he and Q have shifts, and Q leaves for the day, and VJ ends up being in you're like, oh, that dude's dead.
And it's horrible.
That dude's
dead. It's horrible. There's this really cool, and I like this device. It's like a saw.
Yeah.
It's like a circular saw blade that's hooked to like a chain, and these people they hire to go after them, I don't even know who they are. They're like thugs or whatever, but one of the guys has this weapon and he just drops it down, and then it just like, I guess like kind of cuts him in half or what. I mean, I don't know. It does something to him. It would be a horrible, painful death. It's kind of reminded me of like that woman in Jurassic World that did absolutely nothing except put up with these shitty kids for the entire movie, and then she gets like the meanest fucking death with the pterodactyl like picks her up and then throws her in the water.
Oh yeah. Well, and apparently the actor on that too, who was throwing the saw, they apparently in the scene where he throws the saw down between Maude Adams and Roger Moore, that scene, he apparently had like to get closer to the action, he had knocked away a couple of like boards or something to get closer, and like he fell from that height when he did this saw thing, and he ended up breaking his arm doing this thing, and they were like, well, I guess we're gonna have to find a replacement, and he's like, nope. Like everybody in these Bond movies are always like, nope, I'm gonna do this with a broken leg, and I'm gonna do this with a broken arm, and apparently he shows up in the movie with a like cast on his arm.
That's right.
Like it's barely, it's like they usually concealed, but like for the most part, he's got that on.
That's crazy. I was just gonna say he probably needed to keep his SGA benefits because he was gonna have to go to the hospital. So he's like, I gotta keep working, guys. Like, that's
true. It's very true.
I have no idea. But sorry I interrupted, but that's all I was trying to say. So and then there's like I don't know. I just think the humor in this is not great. And that's true for a lot of Bond movies. I mean, they've never been that awesome at humor, and I think if they are, it's almost like accidental. It's just the line delivery or something like that. But when they actually try to do these, like, I don't know, this is a very 80s thing too, right? It's just really broad comedy that just doesn't always work.
Yeah.
And it's weird.
And the one-liners are bad too. Like the thing about like where he's like, here, you're going to need this for your asp or something like that. Like when he's handing him the recorder or whatever, you're going to need it sounds dirty, but it's not dirty. And it's just a bad line. And like, so there's a lot of it's like they've sort of run out of steam on like what kind of one-liners to use and what kind of humor that they want to do.
And there's that one where it's like they're in the car, and then she's like, we have company, and then he's like, that's no problem, this is a company car. You're just like, wow. Like, what?
Yeah.
I also like the line where when he's having he's just had he's just had sex with Magda, and she's got like an octopus tattoo.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? Well, he's like, what is that? She's like, that's my little octopussy.
Yeah, and he has this look on his face like, oh, well, yeah, that explains it.
I do like, there is some dumb stuff in this I like, though. I like the alligator or a crocodile. I don't know what that's supposed to be. I assume I don't know what's in, I think both may be in Indy. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There is, every time this comes up, I'm like, okay, what's the difference? And it's always it's the snout, but I don't know what part of the snout that's different that makes it an alligator and what's crocodile. And I'll look this up right afterwards to like figure what that is. But yeah, it's I think it's a crocodile.
I think that's what it's supposed to be. Yeah, that reminds me of we were studying Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and I just assumed those were crocodiles because of course you would. And then you find out they filmed alligators in Florida, and you're like, God damn it.
Yeah. Well, and that was the thing. I had done enough research on that on a previous Sin movie that I was like, those look like alligators, not crocodiles. Even though like there's barely any difference.
I know. But then that was. It was what's his name? It was like Frank Marshall maybe was the one that went and shot the alligator. I don't remember who was on that. He was like a second director or whatever on that. But anyways, yeah, it's funny. But there's like the fake crocodile. It like pops up in the water, and then Roger Moore like opens up the mouth or whatever, and he comes out.
Yeah, which is another. It feels like another callback to a previous Bond. I think it was from Russia with Love, where he has the pigeon or the dove or something like that. It's Goldfinger that has where he's got that on his head and he's going up to the shore or whatever.
Yeah, it is kind of like that. Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm. I weirdly like that. I don't know. That's always stuck with me too. Speaking of Temple of Doom, though, I thought this movie also felt a little Raiders of the Lost Ark. Did you get that too? I
was about to say that we've talked about how the influences of what's popular has started to seep into James Bond.
Yeah.
Itself. This is where Moonraker is the Star Wars version of Bond or whatever, and then this one is the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I don't know how far Spielberg and Lucas were into Temple of Doom when this movie came out. They could have already been shooting it for all I know, and they already had all their ideas, but there's a lot of Temple of Doom that you see the following year in this movie as well. So like it's like this movie's taking from Raiders and Temple of Doom is taking from Octopussy in some ways. It just feels a lot like they're just kind of like exchanging ideas all the way throughout. The scene in the marketplace is exactly like Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, down to the fact that they go through that like advertisement or whatever, and the other one comes down over it. That's exactly what happens in Raiders, right? Like that's, and of course he has that, it pays to advertise or whatever.
That was another line. Yes. Oh God.
Yeah. But that whole scene feels like that because he's going through that marketplace and doing all that, and then they go to Kamar Khan's palace and he serves the sheep's head, which is a Temple of Doom's one of its biggest scenes is all the exotic dishes that are going on in Temple of Doom. It feels like there's sort of like ideas been taken, and we already talked about earlier in Moonraker that Broccoli took that he wanted to have permission to play that Close Encounters thing for the buttons, and Spielberg said, I want to have the Bond theme in my movie. So they're looking at each other's work and like borrowing from each other all the time, so would not surprise
Broccoli
me.
Doesn't want Spielberg to direct a Bond movie. He's just like,
right,
I'm just gonna take
exactly,
shit from
which
you.
makes no sense. Yeah, it makes no sense. And then later on, Spielberg puts Connery in Last Crusade, and it's like, I finally got my Bond now, motherfucker.
And really kind of gave. Well, I guess I do. I mean, Untouchables had happened before that, but Connery, like in the '80s, including, we'll talk about this when we talk about Never Say Never Again. Connery wasn't doing that great. And he wasn't really a star anymore. But then he won the Oscar for Untouchables, and then I think Last Crusade put him back like in the bigger movies.
And sort of famously had turned down so many movies that went on to become huge hits as well. Kind of. So, anyway.
Which is probably true for most big actors, but like at the same time, maybe they've had hits to coincide with it. Like Eddie Murphy didn't do Ghostbusters, but that's because he was doing Beverly Hills Cop, and that actually made more money. So I mean,
yeah,
it's usually stuff like that. But yeah, the Raiders of the Lost Ark stuff, I just thought that was interesting because I'm glad you caught that too. I figured you would, but I didn't know if it was just me being crazy.
No, it seems a bit obvious. In fact, like it could be, like I said, it could be some coincidence here and there, but I really do think that they're sort of just taking from each other at this point. Well, Bond movies and Spielberg.
And I don't know the actor. I don't remember the actor in Raiders, but the guy who gets his hand burnt when he's trying to, like the bad guy, one of the
oh yeah,
like the little guy,
I can't remember his name.
Like Steven Berkoff could have been that guy, and I would have been like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I love how she has her robe with the Octopussy trademark on it. Like she's built her whole like she has a brand, even though she's like a thief.
Yeah.
Stuff like that I just thought was crazy.
It is on her circus.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, I will say though, it is weird though, like as hard as it must have been for some people to request tickets for Octopussy when they went to the box office. Yes. I would find it would probably be harder for, I mean, they are in foreign countries, so maybe pussy doesn't matter that much or whatever. The word pussy doesn't matter that much. But these families going up to like get tickets for the Octopussy circus,
that's true.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe we see it at the end. It's in Germany, I believe, at the very end. So like, maybe it doesn't really matter. But if if it goes to anywhere, any kind of English speaking country, then people are gonna be like, huh? Octopussy circus? What kind of like non-family values crap is that?
Bond is like a master of disguise in this movie. Like he's like not only the alligator, but he dresses up as a gorilla at one point to avoid something. He dresses up as a clown, which that's a really weird scene because I'm sitting there trying to think, like, did he do the makeup himself? Like,
yeah,
like how did this work?
Yeah, I mean, he's like a really good, like he went all full out on that clown makeup.
Like he had been a clown before in his life, and we just weren't aware because like he knew what he was. He even looked exactly like the other clown that it was. I don't know. I thought that was, and then also at the beginning, the Agent 009 or whatever. I guess he was undercover in the circus because he's he's a clown when he gets killed, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So but it's a weird scene where that scene with Bond is the clown and he's like going up to the military guy and like, please, you've got to stop this. And it's just such a weird scene because he's in a clown costume. It's just
yeah. And of course the guy doesn't believe him. He thinks it's just part of the show at first.
And Roger Moore even said he didn't want to do it at first. He was like, this is ridiculous. And then he finally got on board. I don't know what it was that made him think it was fine, or maybe he just didn't have a choice.
I don't know. There's like, well, look, he's got to get into the circus somehow. They're not going to just let him in as a regular dude. He's got to be dressed up as something. He might, he could be dressed up as anything and get in the circus.
Yeah, they could put like a fake mustache on him or something. I mean, anything.
Yeah.
But apparently he just he knew how to do clown makeup and he wanted to show everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Bond just has learned so many things in his life, and putting on clown makeup is one of them.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of a Bond thing. Like whatever he needs to be an expert in at that time, he's an expert in. I guess that's just kind of a Bond trademark. There's a scene with the kids in the car. He's trying to get a ride because he's stuck somewhere, and those kids in the car act like they're going to give him a ride, and then they drive off. This was like a weird like 80s thing, like that like was like Halloween 4. Oddly enough, has a scene exactly like that. Yeah. It's just funny when you see stuff like that. It's just interesting Bond in the 80s, and I just like we were talking about with Fear Eyes Only. I didn't realize how quickly we were already in the 80s in these Bond movies. You almost like Bond kind of defined what some of the 80s trademarks were, and probably did.
Yeah.
The sliding down the staircase scene, I've always remembered. I always enjoy that scene.
Yeah, good stuff.
Well, I also just like how there's like that pineapple or whatever ornament like on the end of the banister. Like he has to shoot that so he doesn't like hit his nuts.
Right.
It's just, I don't know. I think this movie's fun. I just think it's fun.
I do too. I like it because it's different.
Yeah.
It's different from most. We've talked about the confusion there is with all the Jewel stuff, and I don't think it really matters in the end. But it's just so different. It's distinct from most Bonds. Like if you can't there. We've gone through a lot of these movies, and it's like yet another ski scene, yet another this scene, yet another. They keep repeating themselves over and over again. And this one, there's hardly any time you're going to be able to say, well, that one where he's at the circus, and you're going to be like, which one is that? It's Octopussy all the time.
Yeah, and he's in India. I don't know if there's one after this where he goes to India. I don't remember one, but there might be. But before this, there wasn't. And that's why I'm so glad they didn't do it in Japan, because that would have just felt like, oh, hey, we're back in Japan or the Bahamas or, whatever. So I think that helps. It definitely, but like I said, it's not great by any means. Maude Adams isn't great, and the humor is not really well placed, and some of the stuff doesn't make sense, like we've already said. But despite all that, and I think a lot of this too, I don't know if they were just so concerned with Never Say Never Again. I don't know what it was but it's very messy, but it kind of works. I'm actually kind of surprised you liked it too. I was thinking this was going to be one where I was going to have to be like, sorry, I like this. You're going to be like, this movie's terrible. But going into this, I would have definitely thought For Your Eyes Only, in my mind, For Your Eyes Only was a much better movie than Octopussy, and it is 100% the opposite. Like, it's not even close, I don't think. But yeah, Octopussy, it would fall like right now, like we've done 13 of these, right? Or 14, I guess, if you count Casino Royale. This was the 13th, right? So we've done 14 of these, and this would be somewhere in the middle. Somewhere in that, like, Dr. No, Moonraker, Live and Let Die, somewhere in that general vicinity. Do you have anything to talk about before we get to our rankings?
Nope.
All right, let's do that. We are now going to rank this film in 5 different categories. Our scale will be based on something that Bond holds near and dear to his heart, as long as they are shaken and not stirred, and that would be martinis. So for each category, we rank from 1 to 5 martinis. 5 being the best damn liquid that has ever passed your lips. 1 being the well liquor you had to settle for or were too drunk to care that night. So, just overall, like just the movie itself, the story and everything. What's your feeling on that?
The story is probably about a 3.5. It's just a little confusing. We've talked about that enough. It's just a little bit confusing, but in all, I think it's fun, and I think it's fairly straightforward, even though it's hard to follow all the ins and outs of it. And it looks like, even though they went back to, they came back down to earth with For Your Eyes Only and all that. It looks like they've kind of gotten back into an element of like megalomaniacal villains, where it's where Steven Berkoff playing Orlov in this has a plan that seems similar to past Bond villains, even though, and he's not the main guy, he's not the main villain or anything. He's not a guy who has his own lair or anything like that. But that idea of blowing up something so that the world's superpowers think something else has happened, and then and the villain thinks because of that, this is going to happen. That is a very Bond villain thing to do. And I missed a little bit of that. Like I missed a little bit of that fantastic element that usually highlights most Bond villains from For Your Eyes Only, which was just very basic stuff. So, the story here is pretty good. I think 3 and the 3.5, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I'm going 3. I think you said it all perfectly too. I don't really have anything to add to that, but yeah, no, it's definitely a 3. I mean, like, I don't think it could be anything else. The Bond. This is the Roger Moore performance. He's pretty good in this. He has a couple of scenes where he has to do some really weird stuff, like the clown scene. I mean, that's hard to like. It's really hard to take him seriously because he's in all this clown makeup. But and he's like just pleading, like his heart is out there, like please just listen to me. Yeah. But I'd still give this a 3. I mean, it's a totally perfectly fine performance. He seems to be having fun. And he's concerned. Roger Moore, the actor, is concerned about his age, and we'll get more into that when we talk about View to a Kill in a couple weeks. But there's a lot of concerns there that he's just not the most comfortable playing these roles. I think they did a little. I don't know what Maude Adams and the other actors. I don't really know what the age difference was, but at least they looked a little closer in age.
Maude Adams is 38, I believe, at this point. And
he's like in his early 50s.
Yeah, Christina Wayborn, I think, was in her 30s.
Okay.
She was 33 when she did this.
Yeah.
Or, well, it was 33 when it came out. But so yeah, they're in their 30s. He's not dealing with would-be ice skaters in this one.
Yeah, and the characters are more mature. The characters are older and that kind of thing. So that made him a little more comfortable. But I know, but despite all that, he's still he's a professional. He's given a performance, and it's fine. So so I think you said 3 on that as well.
Yeah, 3. So I don't think there's ever a point. Maybe I've already contradicted myself. I don't think there's ever a point where Moore is into the sub 3 category. I don't think so. Moore himself.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So
I mean, Man with the Golden Gun, even I think we might have given him a 3. I'd have to go back and listen. But
because it's none of that's really his fault.
No,
that movie.
It's not. And For Your Eyes Only is a little weird too, because that's clearly a role that was written for more of a Connery type, but even then he still kind of makes it work. No, I like Moore.
Yeah.
I think Connery's a better actor, but there are things about Moore I like better in this role, I would say.
Yeah.
The villain / henchman, that's kind of a mixed bag for me on this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the only reason why it's hard to pinpoint is because we don't know. Kamal Khan seems like a really good villain. He might be the best part of the villain. Louis Jourdan is probably the best part of this. So I think Kamal Khan is probably a 3.5, but then Orloff, who I like Steven Berkoff and everything, but he kind of is I don't know, he's kind of not given much to do except scream at the beginning of it, and then and then we're just sitting there wondering what the plan is the whole time. I guess it's so he's he would be a 2.5 or a 3. And then Maude Adams is never really a villain in the movie. And then you have the God, what is his name? The Gobenda character.
Yeah.
Now he would be a 3.5. As far as villain henchmen go. Like I said, I wish they could have let him speak more because he's got a great voice. So yeah, I mean the villains in this, there's not one person to point to in this one really, and not really. There's no singular performance out of any of them. So yeah, they're all just kind of averagey. Average stuff.
I just think there's too many villains, so I'm giving this a 2. Just because I just think there's too many villains. I think Louise Jordan is great. I think the Steven Berkoff character is terrible. He's just such a generic. He kind of reminds me of an early version of that Russian character in Goldeneye. The one. He just kind of reminds me of him. It's just super. Just why are you even here? Why would anybody let you work with them? And then you're right, I think Gobenda's. I think he's very underrated. I don't think he gets talked about enough, and it's probably because he's coming right after Jaws. Grace Jones is also very popular, and she's going to be in the next official Bond film. So I think he just kind of comes between them, and it's just, he gets lost in the shuffle. But no, you're right. I like him better than Jaws, I think, based on Moonraker, based on Spy Who Loved Me, not the Jaws and Moonraker. He's definitely better than that. And he's up there with Odd Job in that conversation. But like I said, I just don't think any of them get enough to do to really stand out. So that's why I was going with a 2. Maybe more like a 2.5, but still.
Yeah.
Gadgets and gizmos, they kind of go back to that in this. I mean, I would say the saw weapon's fun. I would count that. The alligator probably counts. And
the little transmitter thing that's inside the Fabergé egg.
Yeah, I think it's a 3.
the little watch. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if that does that Q demonstrates something with hydrochloric acid or something before he goes out there. I don't think they ever use it.
I don't think they do either. They don't.
There's like a thing where the acids mix together and whatever, and I'm like, oh, that'd be cool, and it never really.
I just
it
like
never
how
really come.
wherever country they go to, they set up like a Q shop. Like they have like the workers and everything over there. They're doing
Right.
like all, and maybe they just have them all over the world or something. I don't know, but it's just funny.
But like. You're sitting there going, "What's happening back in London? Where they, is everything empty there? Does he have is there a guy? Is there another letter guy that's like running the gadget shop while he's gone?
Oh my god! Because you had like that door that like opened and like slammed into the dummy or whatever and all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd give it a 3. It's perfectly fine.
It's those are stuff that I would call like Naked Gun or Police Squad
very
scenes
much.
where I mean, even though Police Squad parodied them in Police Squad and then Naked Gun. Really, those were already parodies in of themselves. They're just jokes, is all they are.
Yeah, they are.
So,
and it's they're very cheeky. They feel very British.
Well, yeah, which of course, this one has the really stupid one where he goes into the gadget room and he sees that camera and he just focuses on that secretary's boobs or whatever.
Yeah.
and Q's like, grow up 007, blah blah
It's like,
blah.
why do you
whatever.
have the camera focused there? I mean, it's like it's so stupid. But Austin Powers, I guess, makes fun of those too. I would assume. I don't. Yeah. It's been so long since I've watched those movies. There's even like in that We Send Spy, that Melissa McCarthy movie, and they even have like a Q thing, and it's Michael. What's it, Michael McDonald? Is that his name? The guy that's always in the Paul Feig
Michael
movies?
McDonald.
And he's in Halloween Kills. Halloween Kills. Michael McDonald.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, so yeah, no, that's definitely like becomes parody in other movies. But you're right. I think Bond kind of already was making fun of itself before we even get to that point. It's pretty funny. The song All Time High, I don't like the song. I mean, I don't know, there's
Don't
just
like it at
nothing
all.
to it. It's not memorable. It's not terrible.
Now,
but
I don't know if there was some sort of financial, like like you make a love theme to something, maybe it sells better or something. But these last two songs that they've done just don't seem like Bond, and especially since the love interests in both For Your Eyes Only and this movie aren't like, they're not, the love story isn't a big deal. So the love theme songs that go into these don't make really much sense for these movies. There's no action, intrigue, mystery feel to these songs, and just on its own, I don't know if I like the song even on its own. I guess it's got some flourishes here and there, but we've gone a long way down since like Live and Let Die and Nobody Does It Better and all that. Those are some great songs. These are both seem like they have been made primed for 80s soft rock radio
There's a pretty great one coming up in a couple
basically.
weeks, although we might have different opinions on that, but I know I love.
Possibly, yes. I may be in the minority on that one, but when I play that movie, I'll see if I can get into it. So.
Oh man, I don't do karaoke, but there's one of the Bond songs. If I ever did karaoke, that would be like one of my choices. We'll talk about it in a couple weeks. But no, it's not good. It's just a bad song. I'm shocked to hear that it was like a hit, but maybe at that time, like all the Bond songs were, because soundtracks were such a bigger thing too. I mean, that's just, soundtracks haven't been much of a thing since the 90s, except maybe for the Bond movies. I mean, those are really, it's just not that big of an emphasis anymore. But yeah, I mean, it's a 2. It's not a terrible, but it's not anything. It's forgettable, which is why I never remember the song exist. I will say this is to this point, one of my favorite. I think Maurice Binder is really, really getting in. Like, I don't know, finding his groove, I guess. I mean, he's been doing it for a minute.
Yeah, we're sort of like in an official. We're in an official Bond credit land now. Like, there's no like, you know, it was kind of off and on in the Connerys.
Yeah.
Like, Goldfinger's the one that really started it, but then they went back to other stuff after Goldfinger. And then like in the 70s, we started seeing it evolve, and finally it's become this. This is what it is for the remainder, I think, pretty
which might
much.
make the song more frustrating because, like, you're watching this really cool, like, visual palette, and then you're just listening to this really dull, like, you know, all-time high. You know, it's just...
Yeah.
Sounds like it's from, like, it does, like, you're right, though. This... Because, like, we'll talk about License to Kill, and obviously, in, like, you know, a while, but, like, License to Kill is a theme song that definitely is kind of a love ballad as well, but it has like that Bond theme in it. Like, it's got that Bond feel to it. Like, this just sounds like something you'd hear in an elevator. Or like, you know, like this would be like on the soundtrack for like Love Story or something like that.
Yeah,
I mean, it just doesn't fit in this movie.
Nope.
But like you said, I don't even think on its own it's that great. So. All right, so there you go. That's our kind of our overall view of the movie. We have one segment left, which is not going to be that much because there's not much to this story, but this is where we talk about the books that they are adapting these stories from, and that is a segment we like to call The Spy Who Reads Me.
Reading is one of my very favorite things to do.
Whoa! I'm not reading that crap. Summarize it in one word.
Now you want to talk about reading? Let's talk about reading.
How can you read this? There's no pictures.
Cinemasins might have taught you that the book doesn't matter, but for this segment, we're willing to concede it at least kind of does. We're going to give you the nitty-gritty on what is similar to what you saw on the screen, what is different. There will be plenty of what the hell was Ian Fleming smoking when he wrote this. So, this is a short story that is in a collection that is called Octopussy and the Living Daylights. The movie Octopussy takes scenes from a couple other books. Also, the scene at Sotheby's, the auction, that is a scene that is in a short story called "The Property of a Lady," which is actually in this short story collection. It wasn't originally, but I think like after like 1967, they added it to future editions. Also, I should say this book was released posthumously, or is that right? Posthumously.
Yeah, posthumously.
Yeah. Fleming had passed away when this was published. Before this was published. There's also a short story that has nothing to do with this movie, but there's another short story that gets added to that collection called 007 in New York. And then the Kamal Khan stuff taken, the backgammon game I already mentioned, that's actually a scene in Moonraker that they ended up not using for the movie Moonraker. Bond is barely in this. This is kind of a Spy Who Loves Me situation again, where we're getting it all told mostly in flashback, and it's Dexter Smythe. Now, Dexter Smythe in the movie is Octopussy's dad. We don't ever see him; he's not alive, but he's the one. He's the reason that Octopussy appreciates that Bond helped let him commit a suicide. I still think that's the weirdest thing to say, but. That's what's going on. So, Octopussy in the short story is an octopus. So, Dexter Smythe, he's Major Dexter Smythe. It's another person that everybody thought was a hero in World War II, and he ends up being kind of a traitor. He stays in Austria after the war, and he finds all this gold. And he gets a mountain guide to help him go get to it. And when they get there, he kills the mountain guide. And then 15 years later, this is the weirdest fucking thing. 15 years later, this glacier, this guy is somehow in a glacier and like comes out of it. I don't know. I don't get it. It's really weird. I had to reread that a few times. And it just happens to be this guy that in Bond's childhood, it was his ski instructor and kind of like a father figure to him. So he wants to go find out what happened to this guy. So they put him on a mission to try to track down Smythe. And and find out. And then you find out Smythe is like living. Where is he? Did I write where he was? I didn't write where he was. I don't know. He's got like a house on a beach or whatever. And there's this octopus that stays around that area who he calls Octopussy and feeds her every day. He feeds her like these scorpion fishes that he captures, and then he feeds them to her. Similarly to the story that Octopussy tells about her dad in the movie, that's kind of what happens here, where Bond decides to kind of let that guy make his decision. Because, like, Smythe at this point, he's old. He's kind of tired of running. He's just tired of all of it. He feels bad about the murder. And I mean, he's just like, he's kind of over everything. So Bond basically gives him the option to, you know, how he wants to come in, or does he want to, you know, take his own life or whatever. But what ends up happening is he goes in the water to catch some more scorpion fish, and he gets stung by one. And then so he can't move because he gets like kind of paralyzed. And then his pet octopus or whatever comes up and kills him.
All right.
So that's how he dies. So really the only thing the movie even took from this story was that it used the title, it named a character Octopussy, and then it gave her father kind of a similar story. It just left out the octopus stuff, which I guess we're just supposed to assume that came from her just creating that circus and her trademark and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, there you go. It's not terrible or anything, but it's so bizarre. Like the octopus thing is so bizarre. It's kind of fun. And like the Smythe guy, he just talks to the octopus every day. It's just a old guy living by himself and doesn't like his life anymore. It's really, really pleasant.
Yes.
It's just weird how they take these stories and they kind of create their own movie, but then they do take stuff from other books, and it's been pretty fascinating kind of seeing all that. But anyways, that's really all I got. So thanks for joining us this week. Also, before we go, we have social media. You can reach us on Twitter. We are at GoldSpy007. You can also reach out to me directly on Twitter. I am at SamLoomis13. You can email us at golddiamonddeath007@gmail.com. And if you like this podcast and other things under the Cinemasins brand, we also have a Patreon you can join at patreon.com/Cinemasins. And if you have a second to leave us a 5-star review at your podcast listening app of choice, we would appreciate it. We hope you'll join us again next week when we will talk about Never Say Never Again. So this will be our second and last, at least now, adventure outside of the official franchise. I mean, I guess they can make another Thunderball movie at some point. Although I think all that's under the same umbrella now. I think they've kind of, because they were able to start using Spectre and Blofeld and all that stuff again. So
yeah.
So, but who knows? Who knows what kind of crazy shit they're going to do with this franchise. But anyways, yes. So we will be talking about Never Say Never Again next week. Until then, keep the martinis dry and shaken, the Baccarat shoe moving, and the Aston Martin fully gassed. This is Chris Atkinson and Jonathan Watkins signing off, and we will see you next mission.